For mathematics education to be relevant in the 21st century, it must offer an integrated, comprehensive, and extensive view of the world. As an alternative to the fragmented systems nowadays, quantitative reasoning should enable learners to think broadly and across disciplines. Viewing math from a multiple perspective could help learners overcome their fear of what they may have wrongly perceived as a difficult and unnatural pursuit. From the mighty pen of our poet, Francisco Baltasar, flowed the lines, "Natarok ang lalim ng filosofiya, aking natutunan ang astrolohiya, natantong malinis at katakataka, ang mayamang dunong ng matematika." What is it in mathematics that appealed to the sense of wonder of this brilliant poet? Dr. Keith Devlin, in his book, The Math Gene, argues that math is not just about numbers. It is about life. It is about the world in which we live. It is about ideas, and far from being dull and sterile, it is full of creativity. It is the science of patterns. Come to think about it, if we look at the famous branches of mathematics, logic is the study of patterns of reasoning. Arithmetic is the study of the patterns of numbers. In algebra, we investigate the patterns of finding unknown quantities. In geometry, we examine the patterns of size and shape. In trigonometry, we study the patterns of triangles and their parts. In calculus, we investigate the patterns of quantities that change. And in statistics, we study patterns of analyzing data. Now let's look at some other areas, the non-quantitative areas, seemingly, that involve patterns. And we have invited some artist friends to help us unravel the math in the arts. It's hard to believe I'm going to discuss math and music with Mr. Gary Granada because I think I'm an ardent fan. I'm the #1 fan. So Gary is a noted composer, lyricist, engineer, designer, mathematician in his own way, philosopher, storyteller, name it. Okay. Good morning, Gary.
Good morning.
Okay. So tell us about the math inside music.
Okay, my field is music, in particular writing songs, and the facilities of mathematics, I would say, play an indispensable role in what I do, in my field of work. For example, at its most basic, the fundamental idea of location, such as you're like 3 feet across the table from me, or to my left or to my right, is very basic in music. Like if I sing a song, for example, I'll tell you after 3, 1, 2, 3, ang bayan kong piling. Without such a facility, it would be impossible to agree when and where does anyone come into the equation, as it were. In terms of time, and at the same time, in the same way, in terms of notation, if you sing ang bayan ko, it's a location from a higher place to a lower place. Ang bayan ko, Pilipinas.
So there's movement.
There's movement, so you need to locate all these things. At the same time, the idea of duration, how long does an event happen? Does it happen in 2 bars, in 1 second, in 14 seconds? Is basically fundamental language in music. So when you say ang bayan kong, it's the same length, duration. Pili. And then when you come to the Pinas, the duration changes. Pinas. It gets longer. So I'm a musical illiterate, and precisely, and especially because I'm a music, I can't read music. That's where the math comes in very handy. I can drive, I can ride in a bus and continue writing because I can just imagine numbers in my mind. See, this is the note, this is how it should sound.
So it's that precise?
It is quite precise. It's very, very precise. Not just the location and duration, even the shall we say the expression itself, whether it's loud or soft. There's a mathematical equivalence to it, like decibels. I'm going to say, 1 decibel.
So it's measurable.
It's very, very much, especially these days when you have softwares, freewares that everybody can use, and it's very good. Well, on one hand, it puts a lot of musicians out of job, but on the other hand, because of the facility. But at the same time, on the other hand, it democratizes the facility of music. So you don't actually have to go to a music school to do music. You can just download an app and, while I was talking about decibels, for example, when you say 1 decibel and you say relative to this point, 10 decibels is 10 times louder than 1 decibel. You can remember that, you can take note. And because it's an exponential function, 20 decibels is actually 100 times louder than 1 decibel. So if you're aware of that, then you can manipulate the facilities better. But of course, in the end, you trust your ears. What is loud to you may be soft to me. What is soft to me may be loud to
so
you.
it's relative. But where do the patterns come in?
The patterns, I suspect that because our minds store up information, if you introduce patterns into the mix, it's easier for our consciousness to remember your patterns. That's precisely why we remember things that rhyme rather than things that don't.
Yeah.
So when you write lyrics, I have nothing against free verse and all kinds of forms of expressions, but as far as songwriting is concerned, it is very important that you rhyme the lines because that's how your brain remembers better the thing that you're saying, because they sound the same. The associative properties of you associate this word with another word, and that's why I remember it better. Not just the loudness and softness, even the texture, the quality of or what we call the equalization of frequencies. When you talk, for example, you cover a range of frequencies. Human voice probably is between 0.5 to 1.5.
That's interesting because they say that human beings are pattern-seeking creatures. And we see it even in our weaving patterns, in the indigenous textiles. They keep repeating the triangles, nested squares, circles in fractal formations.
Well, that's a political principle actually. When politicians lie all the time, you remember the rise of truth after a while. So it's important that you repeat things.
Is that the reason why you have the refrain?
Yeah. And especially hooky refrains, easier to remember. And easier to remember equals better chances of surviving. It's very evolutionary. The most charming melodies get to survive. The fittest of melodies get to survive, as opposed to just random sounds. And this actually not very little to do with trends. Like it doesn't happen in terms of a few months, like we imagine it to be. What's the trend today? No, we still sing "Hark the Herald Angels Sing," which was written centuries ago. And it's because the melody is so compelling that it survived in an evolutionary manner through the ages. And that's why it's a little difficult to explain melody. I think that's one area where fuzzy logic comes in. But going back to that precision of describing expression, you can actually describe a sound through precise frequencies. If I say it's the same note as it's the same note, but it's a different sound because I've tapered off the properties. My low frequencies, I've tapered it off. Or I can probably muffle the high frequencies. It's the same note, probably the same duration, but that precise measurement of mathematical measurement of frequencies we use all the time. I cannot imagine a musician today, or even then, who has no appreciation for frequency distribution. When you assign, for instance, a voice, bass, alto, tenor, soprano, they are at its optimal use at certain ranges of notes. You can't ask a soprano to sing bass and vice versa. You have to, it's possible, but it's not optimal, as it were. And optimization is a very, very compelling mathematical principle.
I'm glad you mentioned that because my field is in operations research and we deal with optimization. We have a journal in operations research, and one of the most interesting article or paper that I read there is about OR, operations research, and music. So where's the logic in all of this?
Well, especially when you get into progression, well, it is also a very mathematical concept. You don't progress from one thing to another without a logic to it, because you have to have something to step on before you...
just like arithmetic progression.
So when we do progressions, we define them in precise numbers too. Like we say C7, C6, D9, G13 or something, and those numbers have characteristics that help out in the progression of events, so that the effect on the human consciousness, it sounds so pleasant, or it sounds
harmonious,
disturbing, or it sounds sad, or it sounds uplifting, because precisely of the texture of those progressions. And sometimes you don't even have to understand how it happens, but it affects people subconsciously, perhaps. And it creates the same effect. When you stand up to sing Lupang Hinirang, it creates, even without words, a certain sentiment that unifies people. That's one function that can also be mathematically expressed. I think of how many people get to relate. The concept of sets, subsets, and all those things. When we talk about who's your audience, you define. Oh, I was thinking of talking to young people. So the kind, the textures that you use, even the instruments that you put in there, the beat, the groove, which are very, very mathematical. In terms of bass, it's
like arithmetic.
You can use exactly the same song, and then I can sing Ang Bayan Ko in reggae or in jazz or in pop or in standard song, depending on the subset of the population that I'm trying to reach out to or communicate to.
I have a nagging suspicion that combinatorics is very much a part of music, the counting and the permutations, like when you put the lyrics into it, the best words in the best order. So that's precisely combinatorics.
We have on two counts, we have a concept of the principle of counterpoints. You can chop it into two actually. Ba 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 da 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 da. It's a counter puntal, as it were. No? It's a dialectics of melodies, which is a very mathematical concept as well. Comes in there, and if there's a conversation between melodic concepts, the piece becomes more alive, of course, because there's a dialogue going on, and it happens all the time. Da 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 da. It's a dialogue between two counterpuntal themes, as it were. So yeah, the combinatorics. The most basic, of course, would be the choral combinatorics. Soprano, alto, tenor, bass, even more, or the band and the singer. And the objective is to optimize the impact of the combinations, as I would imagine industrial engineers and operations researchers would do it in their fields. Sometimes we just delete portions because it's unnecessary. This is too elaborate, and the net effect is too small or even detrimental to the whole piece. Or add one or two small things in there that make it a little more effective. That's I would think that I would suppose combinatorics in that sense.
Yeah, and that is I think that's the goal of optimization, to make things more efficient, eliminate redundancies.
But we do that all the time, and especially especially in the more commercial work, like when you write jingles, for example, you're given a small window of time, 30 seconds. You say everything in 30 seconds. So that's, you have to be and it is not 29 seconds, it's not 28 seconds, it's 30 seconds. That's how precise a piece can get.
So what advice would you give to learners or lifelong learners regarding the study of math and its connections with music?
I think it happens in anything that you do. You deal with quantities all the time. So if you can, it's always better to talk in terms of verifiable quantities, because you can understand each other better. If I tell you, okay, let's meet here in the morning, it's too broad. If I just tell you, okay, let's jam musically, it's too broad, and so that's why it doesn't sound as good all the time. But if we have a plan, I think that would be my first advice. Make a plan. Always make a plan. You can't just come up with a piece in 20 minutes because you want to write and finish it now. You make a plan. It takes me 6 months, sometimes even years to finish a piece. And it requires planning.
And discipline?
Discipline. Planning. How do I approach it? Maybe I'll invest this part in this. Well, if you're writing the lyrics as well, in this with this message, leading to this and to that. And by creating a plan, if you're working together, it's even better. You can talk to your band mates and say, maybe we should. So it's most basic. I don't think society can prosper without planning. So
I'm glad you mentioned that, Gary, because mathematical program, the programming in mathematical programming means planning. It's not really computer programming. It's really planning, formulating a model.
Our politics, for example, besides because it's not planned, you have a new president, you have a new set of implementors. Co-terminus with whoever is. So there's really no long-term plan, and you cannot accomplish anything without a long-term plan. So that's. I know there are geniuses everywhere, but I seriously doubt that music can be created in a few minutes, and good writing can be created. Maybe we can finish a piece in 20 minutes, and probably it will be forgotten in the next 20 minutes too.
Yeah, and in the same way that mathematical thinking cannot be developed in one sitting.
It took whiles, a whole lifetime practically to figure out the Fermat theorem.
Last theorem, yeah.
So from special relativity to general relativity took Einstein 8 years, I think, to figure out. You cannot do, even God took him 7 days to create something as simple as the universe. So in much the same way, you don't just do music. You have to do a lot of logical thinking.
Yeah.
And of course, mathematics is synonymous to logic, and music is very, very mathematical, in fact. Work together is a good principle. You cannot stand alone musically. Well, yeah, there are individual artists, but most of us focus on a particular area. Writing, singing, playing, those are very different disciplines. So you need to, in order to optimize the potentials of everybody, you need to learn to work together. You have a word these days, collaboration.
Yeah.
See, that's a very...
It's 21st century skill for you.
So, you don't collaborate, you perish. So that's you work together, learn to work together. That's probably why a lot of things in our society don't seem to function well, because we have a tendency to be too contentious about too many things. Or if you try to try to work together.
Yeah, but music will make us all happy.
I hope so.
Yeah, thank you, Gary. We have
Thank
moved
you,
from
yeah.
math to music to politics and operations research. Thank you so much for your
Thank
time.
you.
Mabuti pa ang mga lapis, sinusulatan ng papel, at mas mapalad ang kamatis, maya't maya'y napipisil. Napakaswerte ng bayong hawak na alay maganda, litunan ko lagi na lang nag-iisa.
Okay, mabuhay ang mga mananayaw. Okay, good morning, Jeremy. Good morning, Hazel. Okay, I am privileged to be discussing math and dance with you. Hazel is a graduate of Philippine High School for the Arts. She trained in dance. Then she was given a scholarship from the Cultural Center of the Philippines and the Department of Foreign Affairs to pursue her Bachelor of Arts in Communication Arts, major in speech from dancing to speech. And then she joined the teaching staff of the UP Rural High School. She's the advisor and the choreographer of the UP Rural High School Filipiniana Dance Troupe. Okay. And then of course we have Jeremy here who finished his Bachelor of Arts in Theater Arts in UP Diliman.
Yes,
right? And then he went into Master of Arts as well. And he trained in Indonesia.
Yes.
What's the
Japanese for dance.
Okay. But you also do the Japanese
Yes, the
dance. Jeremy has performed and choreographed more than 52 shows. And counting. Okay. He is with the faculty of the Department of Humanities, UP Los Baños. Okay, let's move on to the geometry of dance. Is dance really geometry in motion?
Yes, I think dance, I always believe that as a dancer, there's always relationship in dance with mathematics. In relation for dance, because dance has to communicate for you to be able to understood, and dance must follow its variables, like it needs to follow this line, direction, shape, okay, and then the most important variable for us dancers to be trained or to be taught is that we must understand the concept of the center.
Center, as in
The body.
Okay, because that is very important in math as well. When we do the Cartesian plane, we have to find the center. When we do the circle, the set of points should be equidistant from the center, and all the other shapes like ellipses and hyperbolas, the cone shapes. And how do you do that in dance, for example? How do you maintain or how do you find your center?
Alright, so Hazel will give us a demonstration on finding our center for us dancer to get our balance. So Hazel will demonstrate the concept of center, finding the balance.
Okay, so in learning folk dance, we usually start with the fundamental dance position. So we start with the first position, the second, third, fourth, fifth, and then you go back to first, onto the other side. Second, third, fourth, fifth, and back to first.
You were not just counting, you were exhibiting symmetry.
Yes.
So when we do the equations, like in math, we have an equal sign, and then you have the left-hand side of the equation and the right-hand side, which sort of balances things.
So everything you do on the right side, you do to the other side.
And that's what you do when you are performing addition property for equality.
Yes. Exactly.
Okay. And what other elements of creative movement are involved and that have their parallels in the world of math?
I think also the principles of the points in dance, because In dance, I believe that there are 8 points that we need to cover.
What are those 8 points?
I'll give a demonstration. It's a simple, the pinpoint is for us is 1, up, and then down, okay, and then the forward, and then the back, and then the diagonal here, and then this part, down again, and then diagonal and up. So in counting, so we try to give the 8 directions. So I demonstrated a while ago. So this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So
You were covering the 4 quarters of the Cartesian plane, Jeremy. Were you aware of that? So we set up a 2-dimensional coordinate system that's named after René Descartes, the French mathematician. And you were trying to cover all of the 4 quadrants.
Yes, for us to build the architecture in dance, because to be able to design and the execution of dance, we need to follow, of course, the 8 points at the same time, the different levels in dance. So we have the high, middle, and low
Can you show that to us?
Okay,
Maybe in the pangalay?
From what we demonstrated earlier.
Yes.
So you begin with your center, the center of your body. Then, for example, middle. And then maybe you go to the lower level. High level, and then you can also jump.
But the
So you cover
movement,
different levels.
the movement is somehow maintained in all the levels, right?
There is a similarity.
Yeah, the similarity. Some sense of invariance, because when we do graphing in math of a function, we can either put it in the center, or we can shift it upwards, or we can move it downwards.
But there should always be a certain flow.
Yes. Right. For example, the sine function, when you move it upwards, it's still flowing, and whether you put it downwards or you shift it downwards, it's still flowing. That's great. Okay. What about the range? In math, we talk of functions. We have the domains. Let's say you work with the points and the lines. So the movement is a function of those variables. And then now we also talk in math about the range, which is the scope of the function. So how do you define the range in dance?
Okay, so defining the range in dance, I think we use the body to cover the space as we travel around the space in a given time. So like for example, when we do the pangalay, okay, 2 dancers, 2 variables are situated in a different points, okay, or location, and then each dancer must have its own direction to cover the space, but moving in a similar direction, or they can also contrast it, okay, or differentiate their direction. So, for example, we can move the circularity is the range, and then not only like expanding our range, but we can also
Shrink it. Ah, okay.
Okay, from expanding and then to contract. So that's I think the terminology that we use in dance, expand or
Compress.
So that makes you dancers flexible in a sense, because if you're moving into a big theater, you have to you enlarge your
movements
range.
have to emphasize also.
But if you are limited to this space, then you have
Yes.
to contract. Okay, so it's like
control. You have to control
Yeah.
your
yes, it's
movement.
very
So it's
important.
like vectors being multiplied positively or negatively. Okay.
Yeah.
So how about in an isolated hand movement, for example? How do you demonstrate range, let's say in the kumintang?
Okay, so kumintang is a basic movement in folk dance. We use it in different dances, may it be from the Visayan region or from Luzon. Okay, so usually we
Ilocos, because I'm an Ilocan.
Yeah, so we usually show the difference in the execution of kumintang, when we have an Ilocano dance, you execute the kumintang this way. With the fingers in a closed fist position.
Very limited range. Does that describe the frugality?
And probably,
Of
because
Ilocanos?
culture is reflected through dance. The culture of one group is reflected through their dances. So probably it would. Yes, because the Ilocanos, they're very thrifty. But when you do it in the Visayas, they're very. They are described as people who are very happy, always in celebration. So theirs are bigger kumintangs. In bigger kumintangs,
Wider range.
usually done when jumping.
The exuberance of the
Yes.
Visayas.
So that's just the hand movement, but you can see the difference of a kumintang that is small in range and a kumintang that is
wider
bigger.
range.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what we do when we want, let's say, a basic sine function is f of x equals sine x. So it would range from -1 to 1. But if I multiplied it, the amplitude becomes 2, so it doubles.
Yes.
Like that. Oh, isn't that nice? What about the floor patterns or the space patterns? Like you do geometric
Yes.
shapes with your body, right?
Yes, for floor patterns, so actually we start from the movement of the foot. Okay, so it depends on the dance you are executing or dancing. So, for example, in a more modern concept of dance, okay, of course, in modern contemporary dance, okay, we have floor patterns and circularity, and then this feet, when you move it, okay, at the back, it leads you to another location or direction. So from here, and then here.
Are you pivoting? Are you doing
Yes,
a pivot?
yes.
Mhm.
And then when you go, you point again. That's another execution, pointing. So the one that I did a while ago is the circularity, and then from point, diagonal, and then point again, and then combination, because in dance we need to execute through combinations of patterns. So from circularity, point, and pivot. Okay, so and for floor patterns, you can also use another way, not only the foot but also the hands. Okay, so to give you more, what's this? Propulsion to a different.
Now you're talking
direction.
physics.
Yes, physics.
Okay. But you don't just define movement with your body. Sometimes the props also do the thing,
Yes.
give you allowance to expand your range.
Your range.
Yeah.
Okay,
Like,
for example, so if you have a manton, for example, if this is a manton dance, you can expand your range by manipulating the props. This way. So instead of just using my arms,
Yes.
I use the prop as an extension of my body.
and the props also is kind of defining some other shapes. Okay, that's good. So to enhance the movement. You also make use of angles because when I'm watching a dance performance, what appeals to me would be the precision in the angles. How important is that to you as a dancer, the angles?
Angles are very important for us dancers to really define the form of the body. And especially when you're performing in a group or in a stage lit by lights, it is important for to use the angles to define the silhouette of dancers. It's the form of the dancers. So it's very important for us to really focus, not only focus, but to work on the angles. So
And that's
angles-
very precise.
precise angles,
okay.
and also when you're working with angles, you also define different shapes. Okay, not only angular shapes, but circular shapes or different types of shapes that you are forming through angles.
Okay, is that true also for other cultures like in Indonesia? are the angles very? Can you show us a typical Indonesian movement?
A typical Indonesian movement has a little bit relationship with the pangalay. So, for example, I will use my back to read. If you can see, there is already angular movements here. Okay, shapes. This is the first execution for the Indonesian dance, Japanese. So there's an angle here also.
Yes, it's not 90 degrees. It's less than.
It's less than.
Yeah.
And then when I shift my weight to other direction, goes the same level, same angular shape, and then when I do another movement, okay, it goes up. It changes the angular movement. And then when I change my direction, still my arms forms different angles, and then when I use it in traveling, the same angular. Okay, that one, and then this one. It's the same with pangalay, but as you can see, when I pause it, there's a still angle here, and then when
Pangalay is more fluid, is it?
almost the same, yes.
Almost
And
the
then when I try to push it, okay, my feet are still in intact position with angles, and then go back to another position, angle, and here. So there is angular execution at the same time. What's this? How do you call it? The isolation.
The isolation.
Of the
That's
arms.
difficult. How do you perfect that? How do you
Through
perfect?
practice.
Through practice.
practice.
You know, that's
That's why-
exactly the
Yes.
same thing with math. You cannot do it without practice.
And it is also very important for dancers to practice with the full-length mirror so that you can really see the angles, the lines.
That's what they tell declamation contestants also. So it's a matter of communicating and then practicing in front of a mirror. Yeah. Okay. Can you? There's this. Because I'm a volunteer for international students, I'm fascinated with this Balinese dance about the candles rotating. And then I said, oh, there's a similar dance in the Philippines where we do that. We have to get the dancers out of that entanglement problem. So can you demonstrate that to us? We call it binasuan, right? Yeah, so
Actually, binasuan is from Pangasinan.
yeah, it's supposed to be tuba.
Yes.
Yeah, but let's just make do with the juice.
So you fill the drinking glass with tuba. And then during their free time, they balance the glasses on the top of their palms. And for the girls, they do this hand movement.
Okay, so that's 360 times plus another 360. You
And
know,
then you
I
can
used to
probably put
think when I was a child that it's just 360. Now that you're doing it, I realize it's 720. Can you do it again? 720
So
degrees to get back to the original
It's a
outstretch.
skill dance. The water or the juice inside the glass should
Must not
spill.
spill. Okay. That's the 360. Another 360 that makes it 720. Okay. You know, we have a property in math called the identity element. So when you do it, you have to go back to the original. Yeah. So
form.
that's an exact illustration for me. Thank you, Hazel. So you think that we really have connections with math? Are you conscious of it when you are dancing? When you are choreographing, Jeremy? Are
My
you
high
conscious?
school teacher is actually a math major.
Really? So
Yes,
that's
Sir Flores.
Flores. And what did he tell you?
That there's always math in dance, that we should always be precise in our movements because something might not go well in the formula if one element is not.
And you're telling a story while you're dancing, right?
Yes.
Yes, and that's the same thing. People don't realize that when we put up an equation, we are actually telling a story. So if it is a linear equation or a quadratic equation, it tells us something. So the quadratic equation, for example, is shaped like a parabola.
Yeah.
It's opening downwards or upwards. And that's how the corporations maximize their profit when they reach the highest point. So can you tell us, how do you do the jump and reach your highest point? Yeah, the jump.
Okay, wait.
So you're not just now defining the planar pattern, but now you are conquering space and defying gravity somehow, just like the ballet dancers.
Okay, so just to give you a quick and simple demonstration on the different jumps. Okay, so we have the simple, this is the jump, simple jump, and then if you want to execute it with more intense, okay, feeling or execution with the dance, okay, first execution is you really need to, is the most basic. You need to bend to give you a more height, give you height in your execution. So this is the simple, and then to give you a more complex, so it goes there. And then another one is here. So and then we turn and then it jumps. So those are just simple execution for dance that I use with complex preparation, okay, or very intense preparation with the use of the legs.
Yeah, I've watched the Banwa, and you were the choreographer.
Yes, ma'am.
How did you train the dancers for such difficult routines?
So I give them just the regular itinerary activity, actually the simple dance, and then
You start with the simple ones.
do the simple one, and then they
progress.
progress more complex.
I do the same thing in math. We do the simple exercises first, and then we progress to the more difficult ones.
Eventually, you'll jump higher.
So you can now go to advanced calculus if you know your basic. Yeah. So do you really enjoy dancing, don't you? You do.
Yes, of course.
But do you find it really hard? I mean, is it really hard work, and you don't mind the hard work at all?
If your passion is dancing, you will do everything in order to develop your talent. So it is hard work, but if you're enjoying it, there's nothing that you can't do.
And you get paid for what you enjoy
Yes.
doing. And you get to see places.
What is beauty about in dance and also as a practitioner is it's some like a gadget for us. We use our body like some kind of device that we download or different dances or applications. The more that you have applications, like in the cell phone, that the more you have applications or training in dance, the more that you can execute a lot of dances.
More versatile.
More versatile.
Okay. So how do you do the process of designing or
Correct, designing
because in math they say that it's very abstract and we make the invisible visible. So how do you do that in dance?
So usually you start with an inspiration. Okay, so this inspiration is probably intangible. It is something that you cannot see. So
Just like math.
Yes, just like math. So it may be a feeling, an emotion that you would want to convey to your audience. Might be a story that you would want to relay to your audience, and from that you feel it from deep inside, and you make movements that would relate to what you're trying to convey, the emotion. Will it be slow in order to convey sad emotions? When you're happy, more movements with the hopping and the jumping. So it's about the inspiration, the emotion.
Yeah. Hazel, I've seen the Ramayana that you choreographed for UP Rural High School. It was fantastic. People in the audience thought they came from the Philippine High School for the Arts because UP Rural High is very academic, right?
Very
in
academic.
Orientation. And now they are getting into the intuitive side of themselves. That was fantastic.
So it's like a form of stress reliever for the kids when they're fed up with the academics.
The math and the science.
Yeah.
Okay. But science, math, and dance and arts were
They're still
never
very
really
much
separated in the first place. I don't know why we got to separate them. So it's about time that we integrate everything. So mabuhay kayo and keep on dancing!
Maraming salamat.
Maraming salamat. Hi, Yvette. Long time no see.
Hi, Ma'am Alleli.
Yeah, you've
Long
been very
time no
busy.
see.
I
Yeah.
see that the guest book is filled up, ibig sabihin, dami-dami mo ng customers.
Opo.
Yeah, it's a privilege to be working with Yvette on a very unique project in the Arts and Science Fusion. Yvette Beatrisco owns this place and manages this beautiful place. It's called Ginhawa Arts Cafe. Thank you for lending the space to us.
You're welcome. We're happy to have you here.
And she was trained as an interior designer in UP Diliman, but now she's an entrepreneur, an artistic entrepreneur. Okay, so we would like to know how much math is involved in your visual arts and your sculpture and the management of business. Okay.
Yeah, art is involved when I teach kids, because one of our products here is that we teach workshops to kids and adults. So I find it easier when I teach somebody who has a background on fractions, because the way we teach how to sketch is that you learn to look at an object and see what's the proportion of the width and the height. So that's how the conversation goes. For example, you put up a pencil and then you say the width is 1/3 of the height. And so the person has to translate it to the paper in order to come up with a proportion that doesn't disappoint them when they draw.
And even the
object.
young children understand that concept?
Yeah, the challenge is making young children understand that concept there. So when they're in grade school, it's easy and they get it and they're excited with that concept. But when they're a little younger, we need to be more creative in making them understand parts. For example, like, do you think this kitten is bigger than this human? And if it's how many kittens do you need to make up one human? And
wow, that's really massive.
Yeah.
Order relationships. Ayan. And what else is involved?
So,
is there pattern involved in visual arts?
Yes, there's pattern, tessellations, that in order to come up with tiles. And another way is when we use the color wheel. So let me show you. This is the color wheel.
I have to take down notes because I need to learn.
Okay, on the third session of basic workshops, we start to teach them the color theory. Because as artists, we think that making colors, splashes on our canvas comes instinctively, but actually there is a theory behind it. And I think being exposed to you and how you see math in art, there's a pattern and computation to this. For example, a complementary...
So we have a circle.
Yes.
Which is divided into sectors.
Yes,
right?
it's divided into 12 parts with all roots from the primary colors, red, blue, and yellow. So from these primary colors, we always say, ang anak ng dalawang kulay, because you have to find the very middle part, which is 50% of this red and 50% of the other one.
And you're going to mix them?
Yeah, so when you mix them, then you find out the new color. So usually the kids find out the new color and they are happy about that discovery. So for example, here, 50% of red, 50% of yellow turns out orange. And then, and then in the middle part, 50% of orange and 50% of red is red-orange. So red-orange is already 2 parts of red and 1 part of yellow. And then in color harmony, there's something we call color harmony, is how you can come up with the right background for your object, for your foreground. For example, one of Mang Turing's paintings is here. It's an orange bouquet of flowers, and then he chose aqua green as a background. So if you look at the color wheel, his flower theme is here in orange, and then aqua is here on the other side of orange. That's because aqua will be the right color to bring out orange. Yan. And if you look at why, it's because there's an equal diet of yellow in orange and red, and then there's blue here. So it's the it's the complementary.
Now you're exercising logic there because when you said that's because, so it's like when you are doing a proof in geometry, this is the step and then why? It's because of the side angle side thing. So I didn't realize you are exercising logic in your painting or in your composition. Yeah, so that's the way you do it based on the
Yes,
color.
that's how we explain it to students, because when they start the beginners class, they feel that they're not an artist. So it really helps to be able to break it down for them to see there's logic behind it. It gives them a safe
So there's
zone.
hope for me.
Yeah.
That's my I really can't draw, I really can't paint, so maybe you're giving me a glimmer of hope based on that explanation. And what else? What about the when you compose a theme? So what goes on in your mind? Let's say when you did this, it's a three that it's not XY alone. There is a third dimension there. And how did you apply proportion, for instance, in this piece of work?
It just has to look right. So there's a lot of black around the red because black is a heavy color. So we all know that black is a heavy color. So there needs to be something that will contrast it. There, and of course, when you see a chicken, we want to express in this sabong painting that the chicken is fierce or it's lunging forward. So the head needs to be outside the plane. Yun. So I choose what things will be outside the plane.
Yeah.
Yeah. So whatever.
It makes so much sense then.
Yeah.
It tells a story about the sabong. Oh, great. And Yvette, I really can't thank you enough for the opportunity of working with you when Glenda came and massacred all of the trees. And then the trees are Acacia, Nara, what else?
Centennial acacias.
Yeah, Centennial
Naras.
Acacia, Naras. And then I was looking for somebody who could do the giant sungka, and you were really heaven sent. Right?
Yeah,
I didn't know
same as
her
you.
from Adam. So, it has been a great journey after that because of the community art, the community spirit that was generated. You remember that time when we were doing the sungka and every passerby had a chance to do the wood carving,
Yeah.
and the kids were not afraid to make mistakes. Yeah, and then we got to know all of the paete artisans.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what other projects have you been doing aside from our sungka and the baybayin?
The baybayin
Do you remember
pictures.
you didn't know baybayin then, but
Yeah.
now you suddenly put the baybayin on the circular table and it became a conversation piece. Everybody wanted to buy it. And it's a very good way of promoting our ancient script.
Yeah.
What about the big artwork in Tanay?
Tanay.
Tell us about the big
yeah.
artwork in Tanay.
Oh, that was a project now. The professors in forestry used science and art and religion because there's this 400-year-old tree in Tanay, Rizal.
What kind of tree?
It's an acacia tree.
Ah, okay.
So it died toward it's dying towards its 400th year, and then the parish priest contacted forestry to try some surgery on the two trees.
Surgery on the tree.
Opo,
Okay.
yun. That's the same way they do here in UP. Like they put cement in order to fix the cavities and that. So the main goal was to make the two trees live. But after 6 months of surveying, one tree lived. It started to have leaves again. But one tree started to show mushrooms and also it's dead. It was proclaimed dead. And then forestry contacted me because I was with Mang Bogs up in Forestry 2 years ago making
The wood carver.
yes, the wood carver for Paete. We were making an eagle there and a killing statue. So the biology teacher contacted me to propose a design to the priest, and they approved it. So
How tall is it?
it's 16 feet.
Wow. And then you did the proportions there.
Yeah. So it's drawn on paper first for client's approval, and then it's
The scale.
projected. So we put up 3 scaffoldings around the big tree and requested to cut off the branches. So the remaining part, we need to imagine what figure will fit that bark, diba? So what figure will fit, and following also their theme, who is their patron saint. There, so I drew it, and the 12 sculptors with me carved it on wood.
You use the word imagine, Yvette. In our math classes, we learned from Einstein that imagination is more important than knowledge. So because we have a lot of abstractions in math, and now what you are imagining is being brought to reality. So that was converted. The dead tree became alive again in the form of what was the image there? It's a religious image, right?
Yeah, it's something from the history pages. Yun. It's something na you can find who is San Ildefonso. In stories, San Ildefonso is a priest who had an apparition of the Lady of Guadalupe, and that inspired him writing his books. So I just wanted to capture that page in the piece of big wood art. So it's him with wood, with a table with feathers and with a feather for writing books, and the Lady of Guadalupe with her trademark planes, and then going around. Another story is there. It's like printing the page on the wood. So another story of him being veiled as a
And
saint.
how long did it take you to complete that project?
That was 3 months.
And you collaborated with, there were volunteer photographers, right?
Yeah.
And the chain, who did the chainsaw?
The chainsaw is by Roel Lazaro and Frank Gapo. So they're the two chief
people from
sculptors.
Paete, right?
So Manggitoy also helped out because his specialty is making cloth.
Well, in math, we talk of transformations. Of course, we use functions, but in art, I saw the power of transformation. You remember when we tried to borrow that agila?
Yes.
With all of the snakes there in one piece from the Nara. And I thought 6 people would be able to carry that piece of artwork from Forestry to our exhibit area. But it took 12 of them to carry it, and they were very, very careful. Oh, ingatan. So I said, when it becomes a piece of art, people are more careful because if it's up there in the air, they keep shooting the eagle. So I said, this is what art does to transform the men to be very caring about the piece of work. And I think that also happened when we were doing the baybayin, si Neneng sa baybayin. And the people from Circa, the researchers, were very caring about the wood carving. So thank you for introducing art to us and making us more caring. You had twig art as well?
Yeah, we have twig art. So when one of the trees needed to go, like they need it for something, no? So there's a lot of twigs around. So we asked for them and then created them into horses and giraffes and some structures and an oblation outside to fit into the environmental loving theme of UPLB, because everybody is really that's their core nature. There.
And we see children taking pictures of Toto.
Toto. Yeah,
Yeah.
Toto is really a hit, no?
Yes,
And the sleeping boy.
I remember that was Dr. Padolina's idea. You have to come up with a partner for Neneng sa Baybay. And you were carving out there, right?
Yeah, so you were carving.
In open air.
Yeah,
and,
on the tent.
and people are free to join to participate in the creative process, right? So, can we do that again here in Ginhawa? Can we ask for more of that kind where people can participate in the wood
Yeah,
carving?
that would be a great idea.
And people are now becoming interested in baybayin. I have a friend who once, when she saw this place and the baybayin, she wants the names of her children written in baybayin on the wall. So I think we are making progress in promoting baybayin in that sense, right?
Yeah.
And now,
we should have workshops
and,
also.
and
teaching
UP
Baybay.
students are now beginning to realize that what is in their sablay is an u and a pa, and that's baybayin. Okay, did I tell you that baybayin is based on the sine curve and the wave function?
Yeah,
yes, yes. So, can we do
All
that?
Baybayin characters.
Yes, and in fact, the Pangalay dance is really baybayin in nature, the wave movement. So everything is connected now. So thank you so much
Yes, you're welcome.
for accommodating us, and we look forward to having more conversations of math art here. And you know, I've been talking with other artists. It looks like the recurrent theme is math is really a science of patterns, and if it is perceived that way, you can see math everywhere in visual arts, in dance, in music, and nowadays, because the kids are into digital art, I sat in an animation class and I found that there's so much math in animation as well, and the animator was telling us that we Filipinos are very good at it. And I hope that you can help really hone those drawing talents in the kids, because we hope to define Filipino animation in the future. We are not just being outsourced, but we can come up with our own animation project that's truly Filipino. How about making the baybayin move right through animation? So thanks again,
You're
and we
welcome.
hope
Thank
our
you.
project gets approved. We get the trees
Yeah.
there.